My name is Robin Carvajal, and I'm the Dean of the Allied Health Program for San Diego Continuing Education. And I'm here to talk to you today about the administrative perspective of running an integrated education and training program, and specifically highlighting an IBEST program, although I'm also familiar with vessel cluster and vessel specific classes, as well as what an alternating teacher model looks like. Some of the benefits, I think, of running a program of that nature is that the instructor, whether it be one instructor in a classroom or two instructors in the same classroom, have an opportunity to analyze the curriculum and, in a sense, pick apart the underlying basic skills elements that are critical for anyone who is studying a specific content area, be it nurse assistant training or personal caregiving. Take a look at what are the underlying reading and writing and math skills that are critical in order for a student to effectively learn the skill and content area that exists in those career areas. So the benefit is really the fact that those basic skills can be focused on, extracted, delineated, and then after that extraction has gone on between the two teachers, usually the basic skills teacher having a greater ability to recognize what those basic skills are, but they need the content instructor, the career instructor, to be able to lay out the essence of what the subject area is. So together they create the curriculum. And then it's really the integration of that curriculum. That's really the way it is. I think from an institutional standpoint, it has the opportunity to have IBEST classes in particular, where two departments, in essence, are working together, the basic skills department and the career technical education area, has helped tremendously to inform both departments about the subject matter that is so critical in each. It has helped instructors on both sides of the fence understand what the students' challenges are. So it has given creative ways to be able to teach more effectively to those learning challenges. It's definitely enriched the students' experience by encouraging referral to other resources within our institution. For example, we have, just as a standard now in our nurse assistant training class, if we know that a student lacks computer skills, then we refer them to our business information technology labs. If we know that a student is really challenged by math skills, and we know that that student is interested in going on or just in functioning well in the nurse assistant training, we refer them to the learning lab. And so I think that having the IBEST model in place has definitely supported and developed that cross-fertilization, cross-usage of resources, enriched it tremendously in our organization. Vessel cluster is more cost-effective, on the actual direct instructional end of it. However, in order to get to a vessel cluster class, an awful lot of curriculum development has to go on, or pre-work has to go on, in order to bring together all the separate, discrete content areas, instructional areas. iBest, it's more expensive to deliver because you're literally paying 2 teachers to be in the classroom at the same time. And it's also less diverse in terms of being able to prepare people for multiple career areas. With the cluster vessel, you have an opportunity to prepare someone to be a welder, another person to be a nurse assistant, someone else to be a machine technician, or whatever the technical area is, in the same classroom. So you really have a lot more flexibility in that sense. But once again, then the downside of that is it's not as hands-on. In an iBest classroom, the opportunities are much more immediate, hands-on application. And so we all know, all the research says that adults learn much more effectively when they are when they're able to apply what they're learning, when they're learning something that their motivation is employment or ongoing career opportunities. I think that if you look big picture, that overall what you're able to do by using IET programs is move people through a developmental path towards preparing them for a job more quickly, in a more focused fashion, which in essence saves money.
Right.
So to be able to get them into a career path area before their basic skills are necessarily at the minimal level that is traditionally required for that career area, begins to create bridges for them, expose them to this career opportunity that they might not have gone down, and motivates them to learn the basic skills more quickly, more effectively, to apply by applying them, shortcuts the process in many ways. So the overall enrollment for San Diego Continuing Education is about 85,000 currently, students per year. In reference to the Allied Health Program, where we did an iBest model, and the ESL program, where we're currently doing an iBest model with a vessel for personal care assistant, and also the welding program. In those examples, the Allied Health Program, the nursing program, is actually the smallest program within continuing education. It actually is only a total of, we graduate a little over 200 students per academic year. Within that, that's 7 classes. 1 class per year for a number of years was offered through the iBest model. So that amounted to about 30 students. In the Vessel for Personal Care Assistant, we've been offering that now for, I believe we're in our 3rd year. And we only offer 1 class per semester, and we have anywhere from 35 to 40 students that complete that. So we would have about 60 to 70 graduates of that IBEST program. And then that positions them well to move into the nurse assistant training program. So it really creates a beautiful bridge for that. When I wrote the grant for the ARA-funded project, we selected IBEST because, for multiple reasons. Our school was already on a path, continuing education through the leadership of Dr. Anthony Beebe, was already on a path to begin to implement various IBEST pilots. And within the allied health field, the program chair, Kathy Campbell, had already put forth a strong desire and demonstrated a need for nurse assistant students to have an IBEST program because of the way they were performing on the test of essential academic skills, which is a test that is used for entrance into the nursing program over at City College. So there were all kinds of, the setting was right for it. We simply needed some additional funding to be able to put 2 teachers in the same classroom and to work on curriculum development ahead of time and to reward or appropriately compensate instructors for the additional coordination time and curriculum development time that it took to put together the model. First of all, when you get started in it, there are many things to consider from a development standpoint, from a scheduling standpoint, from a budgeting standpoint. One of the things that admin, I think when admin does their job well, they provide appropriate level of support for the teachers to connect, to coordinate, to brainstorm, to work together, to put together a team to be able to address coming up with a curriculum that takes a content area and extracts the basic skills and puts it into a functional context that is a realistic functional text and that flows. That requires so much coordination. And so from an administrative perspective, being able to allocate some additional hours for instructors to meet is really critical. Understanding about how to do the scheduling, really consulting the instructors, choosing appropriate instructors is a critical element. They have to work well together. They have to understand the value in the model. They have to be able to understand the benefits. They also have to be able to, of course, communicate and coordinate, take cues from each other. It's a delicate dance in order to be done correctly. I think the most immediate way to track successes actually works for both, and that is transition. Where do the students transition to in either? So in a cluster vessel, you want to see them transition. If it's not a complete program unto itself that then results in a job certificate, then there's going to have to be a pathway, and that transition into a career technical area class is one of the significant ways to track it. There are some cluster classes, cluster vessel classes that would prepare individuals for lower level jobs that don't necessarily require a job certificate, that don't require a state certification. For example, personal caregiver is one of those. And in that situation, many students go on to employment. And so not only transitioning to the nurse assistant training class for the vessel for personal care assistants, but also tracking the transition into employment is a great way to see how successful the program is being. So in the situation with the iBest for nurse assistant training, then tracking the transition over to specifically City College or to another institution, Grossmont Health career occupations, to see if they've gone on into nurse assistant or nursing training, LVN program or RN program, is a significant way, as well as tracking employment. And it's always a challenge to track students, and we're branching out and using different means to do that. Facebook and social media is one of those ways that we are trying to remain in contact with our students. If your goal is to track success, and I encourage everyone to think about and document success, particularly in this time of tight budgets, and also in this time when going for outside external funding, you always need to have evidence of why your model is worth funding. One of the critical pieces in being able to track success is to identify before you start the program, what does success look like? How will I know when this program is successful? You really have to put your heads together, look at it from multiple perspectives, from the administrative perspective, meaning take into consideration the big picture and what the strategic priorities are and the mission of the institution. Work with the instructional staff to determine from a grading or from a testing perspective what is success. From the student perspective, what is it how will they know if it meets their goals? So really looking at it from multiple perspectives and selecting that criteria, and then looking for ways to track it, to measure it. That's critical in determining program success. I think very often we forget how important it is. You know, it's always important to have the end in sight when you design something. And, you know, we all know that, but I think we're always in a rush to get something off the ground that we forget to make time for those important pre-planning steps, and then to monitor it throughout.